We live?
Yeah.
Not yet.
Oh. Oh.
We about to get it in.
It does say meeting is now live on YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Waiting for the recording, and we'll go ahead and jump in.
Yes.
Take off. Hello and welcome to the Lost Confederacy channel. This is week 6 of the 13-week fiscal program of recovery for American prisoners of war. Today you have myself, Chief Biko, as always, Chief Alligator and Chief Quietwater. And here we focus more so on that first letter in the acronym APOW, which is American. Before we get started today, we definitely need to address some incidents that occurred over this past week. And that incident would be the murder of Jordan Neely, the 30-year-old in New York that was murdered by this European that they have yet to release any information on, let alone arrest. And definitely we need to go ahead and talk about this because this is just basically in alignment with what we've been discussing, not only through, of course, the Civil Rights Act, but also through pretty much everything that we've been discussing on this channel, whether it be militia, from our military occupation, all the way down to even, of course, the lynchings, which again, this is basically a modern day lynching that we again were shown on TV. Again, it's propaganda, the system's propaganda machine. So yes, definitely some things we have to discuss in regards to that, and then we'll go from there. So first and foremost thing we need to break down is, basically what this, homeless is, or what it actually means. And they're treating it as basically this is a non-human, a non-person, basically have no rights. Like, hey, it's like stepping on a bug. You step on a bug, nothing's done. Hey, we just moving on with life. So that's the first thing I think we have to address in how that pretty much was basically pertains to our group of people. So I'll let you all kind of take off on that, and it will continue to go.
Yeah, I think that they are, the fact that they're putting out there, oh, this homeless man or any, and all of that, that has nothing to do with his life. That has nothing to do with him being treated any kind of way and allowing, a European to just literally choke him out in front of people. So it can be videos. So, the whole wide world could see this happen. And so I think that, again, it's a slap in our face. Again, I think that we just take the back seat, and it just so happened to be that the mayor of New York is an American like us, and he didn't want to release this man's name, anything like that. So I just think that we all just need to just open up our eyes once again. Another man down.
Yeah, we definitely have to be very careful with the word homeless. I thought about it. First of all, let me say, Jordan, I'm sure a lot of people that age were named that due to Michael Jordan. So let me start there, right? Secondly, people who are 30 years old and younger, we really need to be careful with that word homeless, because let's really think about what homeless means. If you do not live on your own and have a lease or a mortgage in your name, you are homeless if you're over 18 years old. So the fact that if we look at it like, oh, he was just a homeless, we really need to understand what homeless means. Homeless could be a 25-year-old unemployed living with his mama. So that's my input on that. We really need to be careful when they say that word homeless. It don't mean you got to be living under a bridge or living on trains in New York City. Homeless is your grown son or daughter that's living with you. So what they're showing us is that this is normal now. We've already shock test you with the police killings. Now we're going to move to civilians killing you. So we'll get into that, but that's my part on the word homeless. We got to be careful and not just throw that man away because the media says, oh, he's just a homeless. Our unemployment rate has always been off the chain amongst our people. So what are you saying? If you kill a 25-year-old with headphones on the train station in Atlanta, he's a homeless guy? Because he's not in your matrix, he's not currently employed, he doesn't have an apartment, or he's not leasing anywhere. So that's it.
Right. And I'm glad you brought up that point too, basically going off of what the media has told us. Oh, he's homeless, as if that's supposed to give credence to his murder. And same thing, we look at it on the opposite side. Oh, he's ex-Marine. We're talking about the European that killed this brother, Jordan Neely. So they're putting out these two, I'll say, code words, one being homeless, as if that's supposed to mean your life doesn't matter. And then ex-Marine is supposed to give justification for being able to murder a straight human, a U.S. citizen, whatever you want to call it. As if that's, gives them justification to go ahead and, okay, like you stated, just have regular civilians, as long as they're ex-Marine, go ahead and kill people under again, whatever justification they want to, as long as those people on those trains are on code. Same thing that we just witnessed with with Emmett Till. And she was passed last week.
Right.
Same.
I mean, the same thing with Ahmaud Arbery.
Correct.
They were civilians,
Correct.
and yeah, so it's just being thrown in our face over and over and over again. And it's up to us now. It's on our shoulders.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I just say, with that ex-Marine, what is that supposed to do? And again, they haven't arrested this person, this European. So how are we supposed to actually know for sure if this person is even ex-Marine, let alone even in this system? When I say in this system, how do we know he's not a Ukrainian refugee or some other, again, undocumented person? Because we don't know this individual's name, let alone we just got the image, because they was blurring it out through most of the media coverage.
They were, yeah.
Again, how
no, I was just going to say, even like with the video that was put up on our page, the incident that just happened in Atlanta when the young Black man had mental issues that were documented, and he was on medication for, and they brought out the tanks for him, heavily armed police officers, and he was an ex-veteran, but his name, his mugshot has just been floating around, not only that, because he was he was a veteran, the military came out and made a statement in regards to him and who he was. So it's right in front of our face. It's literally right in front of our face.
Great point. Great point.
Let's put a different spin on it, if you will. Ex-Marine means a different language to them. All right. So we do the treaty talk, we talk law, law and history go together. We do all that, but you got to be versatile out here, man. Let's get to it. Ex-Marine is code word for militia.
Yeah.
What we're about to do tonight is we're about to tie it together to remind you, because we love going to sleep about being occupied militarily. Ex-Marine through the media apparatus is just sending a code word. He's one of ours. And all you did is watch everybody get organized around that reality, which is why he killed the man on Monday. There's been no arrest made in this Sunday.
Wow.
Great point. That's going to tie us back to, again, one of the first documents, if not probably was the first document we went over on this channel, the Militia Act. As you stated, ex-Marine, again, that's just code word for he's part of the militia. We played the video, I believe, last year. We probably played it like, maybe 10 weeks in a row, talking with Jonathan Greenback about how this whole system was infiltrated with militia, right? So as you continue to see everything that we've been pretty much showing and putting out and making, everyone aware of is coming to fruition. Again, whoever you're voting for in these elections, they're all part of the militia. Your local officers, judges, even down to church members. I think they even talk about having certain clergymen in the militia. So again, all of this is going exactly back to this whole article, which pretty much started and set the ground floor for our military occupation. that we're dealing with today. And I just wanted to kind of highlight a few things within this document. Again,
and let's just stress real quick while you're finding that section, Chief Biko, for everybody that's listening in the chat or may view this video later on. We're here. We've been doing this since the pandemic started, and we are officially here now where it's no longer you have to have a badge on this. Let me come straight up the middle. I ain't no need to sit right here and tongue wrestle with it. Now, with this murder on video of this man, Jordan Neely, what they're showing you, because it's already done, he's dead. They're showing you that everyday people can kill you now. That's where we are. You really got to understand that. This man is not in jail.
Right.
But if you commit a crime on video, it's a no-brainer. It's an APB. They activate militia, every agency within the sheriff and the policing forces, and they coming to get your ass. This man is on video, and we don't know who this man is what we're saying. Just because the media says he's ex-Marine, we're just going to go along with that narrative and go and cite back to the Militia Act. But we don't know who the fuck this man is. He could be an illegal immigrant. And keep in mind, they bust what, 5 busloads just this weekend. So you got illegal immigrants coming to New York, getting free housing, free food. Let me say that again. If you don't believe we're prisoners of war, you got non-citizens getting housing, but you got a 30-year-old man who couldn't get housing in the same. So they're openly killing us while bringing non-citizens into that same city and giving them shelter, and we're not seeing the play. Go ahead, Chief Biko.
Excellent point. Excellent point. And, just piggyback off of that, as far as, us going along to get along, as far as what the media is telling us that this person is ex-Marine. And again, we have no record of that. We don't know who this individual is. No fingerprints was done, no intake, no record.
Right.
There was no arrest. So again, we see that there's no arrest. And of course, even if there is an arrest, how many times have we seen, GoFundMe's pop up immediately? Kyle Rittenhouse, over $1 million to help fight his case. Countless other, individuals with the same thing. So even if there is an arrest, definitely be on the lookout too for, a GoFundMe page immediately popping up. Because again, we're just showing that, okay, they're on code with what they're doing. And like you stated, with the whole immigration thing, and I think the lifting of Title 42, I think is what they're calling it. Yeah, you're going to see more and more busloads of illegal immigrants, undocumented citizens, undocumented people being flooded into not their neighborhoods, it'll be our neighborhoods. And you'll continue to see more and more killings of us until we decide to do something about it. And that's just the plain facts in regards to that. So,
and one more thing on that. A tab just opened in my brain. Not only are they bringing illegal citizens to New York and giving them housings and stipends, they don't have to take a COVID-19 shot. Let's not forget, people, New York was ground zero for COVID-19.
Correct.
A lot of our grandparents or a lot of our elders were killed in New York City. Now they're bringing illegal citizens, and they don't have to take what your grandparent took if they're dead in New York, or your auntie or your grandma. So we're being replaced right in our face is what we're saying. This shit ain't rocket science at this point. Go ahead, Chief. It's kind of, it's embarrassing in a way, but I'm gonna keep going back to that Django scene in the movie Django, when Django was looking at that European, and his prisoner of war said he tired of fighting. He don't want to fight no more. And they sicked the dogs on him and ate him alive. And Django looked that European dead in his eyes and said, "It's your nigga. You do what you want to with him." It's unfortunate, but a lot of us, we're going to have to look at him that way.
Right.
Wake up and realize that you were never recognized by this government under the words Negro, Black, color, or Afro-American. What else does that make us, y'all?
Yeah.
Seriously. If you listening to us right now, what else does that make you? If we're reading these documents and we can't find those words, never
non-existent. I mean,
you're a POW.
Yeah. Go ahead, Chief Choir, you want to build on that or?
No, I'm good. I mean, I'm in alignment with everything that we've all said.
Got you. And again, just to kind of point out some things here, even their quote unquote religious people have no problem with others that will fight for their survival. So even if we're looking here in regards to this little sentence here, even though the people called Quakers, who though they do not, as the world is now circumstanced, condemn the use of arms in others, yet are principled against it themselves. So they don't mind if they're going to have another person that looks like them fight on their behalf. They're cool with that. They say, hey, we aren't going to do it, but we'll support you as far as others that look like me or that look like them. In this case, with the European, hey, we'll support y'all as far as whatever you're going to do. So again, if there is an arrest, which I doubt there will be, don't be surprised if, again, millions of dollars be flooded, and it won't be from just the militia. It'll be from your clergy members, things of that nature, your religious leaders, and all of this stuff, because again, they're on code in regards to saying, hey, we'll support ours come hell or high water. So I definitely wanted to highlight that because that's something that we'll have to be on code with. You know, fuck your religious belief. They understand that, hey, yeah, our religion says we can't do it, but we all about that if you all want to go ahead and do that to protect us, because we understand that that's an essential part of survival. That's the first law of nature, which we did a build on already. So again, they're on code and in alignment with that, regardless of their religious beliefs. And then again, just for anybody who wants to continue to say that we are the freedmen, just to remind you while we on this document of who this freedman term even pertains to. So we take a look here, representatives of the freedmen of the said province in General Assembly. This province is basically talking about Pennsylvania. So again, we have to go back. It's 1755. Were the American Indian, were the Cherokee, were the Chickasaw, Choctaw, were we a part of this system in 1755? And if we aren't, then why the hell are we going along with these terms such as freedmen when they're telling you exactly who the freedmen were? These colonists, these European colonists. But again, not to beat a dead horse, because we already pretty much have debunked that. But again, just as a quick reminder to show you exactly who this is for, because again, they're showing that they're all on one accord.
Yeah, go back a couple of sentences so you can read that whole
From this one here?
Yeah. And
Okay.
just go back a sentence where it says King's Royal.
Got you. So we have this with the King's Royal approbation, Lieutenant Governor under the Honorable Thomas Penn and Richard Penn Esquire, true and absolute proprietaries of the province of Pennsylvania and of the countries of Newcastle, Kent, Sussex, upon Delaware, by and with the advice and consent of the representatives of the freedmen of said province in General Assembly met, and by the authority of the same, that from the publication of this act, it shall be and may be lawful for the freemen of this province to form themselves into companies.
Stop right there.
Right there.
Yeah, we just want to just put it in context, just so people can see. And if you can drop that link in the chat, Chief Quietwater, so they can have, so people can have it for their records, so they can see for themselves. The word freeman comes from Europe, and it clearly says it was a King's Royal approbation. So here again, when you don't know your history, your politics are fucked up. We're holding on to words that a king from Europe gave the European that was in the province of Pennsylvania. That's where the word freeman comes from. That's what we're showing you on this document. So yeah, if we can drop that in the chat for those, and you can read it for yourself. And it's all about proof of claim.
Correct. And that's just going to lead us to this individual here, because I'll even highlight where it says that this was pretty much brought upon or brought to their attention of even forming this militia by Benjamin Franklin. Again, a member of this house. Again, nothing having to do with our people. This is a whole separate government. But again, we're just showing who these individuals are and how they'll promote their warlords and things in different symbolic ways. So again, we see Benjamin Franklin. We also know that he's known for being on the $100 bill. This is the largest denomination of money, if we're going to call it the fiat, underneath this system. So they're honoring their founding father, who again established that foundation or the ground floor of the military occupation that we're currently underneath. So just on in that itself, again, $100 bill, they're saying, hey, we fuck with Ben Frank. He the one that pretty much got all of this as far as the ball rolling in regards to basically our life that we're living now. Anybody kind of want to build on that?
And then just to go back to, you know, like you said, the founding fathers, and when they created the Constitution, like we pointed out before, it was for them. It was for their generations to come. You know, we weren't included in those founding documents. And so I think that's important, just to keep putting it in the people's face that this structure just, it wasn't for us. But we still try to include ourselves and try to, you know, try to live up under this construct of their government.
Right. And we've done a build on the Confederacy, reading the Iroquois Constitution. So if you're asking the question while you're looking at this image and watching what we're breaking down, if you're saying, well, what government were we under? We were under confederacies. Our structure was completely different. We had lords of confederations. Lords over the confederations were over certain tribes, and then you had a lord of confederations that was over all the tribes. So like until we really understand that we didn't have states, we had territories. So when you cite back to state this and state that, you're talking about a trust that comes from a system that was set up by kings in Europe. I guess you have to kind of look at their government and their history. The way I look at it is you have to put yourself as king on the chessboard. And you have to understand that somebody wrote out a procedure and then put people in place to execute. That's what the kings and the queens in Europe did when they sent them peasants over here. They already had it written out. They already had the business structure set up with the Virginia colony and the London. You got to step back and look at it as if you're calling the shots. You got to look at it from a king position. And then this general makes sense. Who was Benjamin Franklin a general of? What army? Whose army was he a general of? The king in Europe. Who was George Washington a general of the army in? The kings in Europe. So we got to look at that coin and stand on the edge. What we do a lot of times is we'll fall off the edge and go heads or tails throughout our story on this land. You gotta remember, Confederacy is American, United States government is European. It's just that simple.
Correct. Great point. Last but not least, just to kind of go back and harp on something you talked about earlier too, Chief Quietwater, with the comparing and contrast of two, well, we'll say quote unquote ex-Marine, because again, we have no information on them, but as far as the brother that was committing the shootings in Atlanta, we know all of the information. Like you stated, you had even the military come out and make a statement. But going back to what we're looking at here, as far as militia districts, I'm pretty sure, like we stated earlier, that these, or within this area, you had certain militias go ahead and be activated to help subdue an American. Like you stated, you had the military come out, SWAT units, APB, all kind of shit came out for the American. And you know, all his information, got his mugshot and everything. But when it comes to this quote unquote ex-Marine, again, we're saying quote unquote because we don't know who this individual is. We watch a video every week before we start the video with Lyndon B. Johnson basically stating that, hey, a proclamation is not fact. So what is the difference between that and what media is telling you that this person is supposed to be ex-Marine if we have no information to back that? So I definitely wanted to highlight this again, just to show that, yeah, as far as Georgia, it's set up in militia districts. So I'm pretty sure that a lot of these areas or a lot of these militia areas were activated to, you know, assist in actually subduing that individual.
Can you drop that link as well, Chief Quietwater, in the chat? So that, you know, just it's all about information. When more of the people understand what happened to us on the land, then we become more and more American each day. one drip at a time. There's only one American, and that's us. The evidence is overwhelming with the inventors, which we're about to get into now as we shift into what we normally do. But I mean, we're just bombarding y'all consistently like a little small drip every Sunday, giving you a new inventor, another industry that we created, constantly showing you what American pride and what American tradition is. It's us.
Right.
If it wasn't us, then there would be other groups of people on all these inventions. When you think of a train, you need to think of the American, us.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? When you think of telephones and electricity, that's us.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what it's going to take for us to click. And we were not slaves. How we'll hold on to a slave term, but you won't put any respect on your grandparents and your great-grandparents that no, they were fighting these people. You're actually prisoners of war.
Right.
Why are you prisoners of war? We're reading the 1968 Civil Rights Act as we speak. We've read 3 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yet to see the words that they use on media to describe us: Black, Negro, colored. But we got a definition of Indian in the 1968 Civil Rights Act. So what does that tell you, adults? Just sit back and ask yourself, if you're a grown adult and you got logic and reason, if you've never been defined by their Congress as to who is the Negro, who is the Black, who is the colored, what does that make you? But you have evidence of towns flooded, burned, tore down, murders on video, and all of a sudden people act dumb like jurisprudence doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's going on in New York right now. Everybody acting dumb like, oh, it's a choking out on video, but I mean, he's ex-Marine.
I mean, that's bold as hell.
At this point, yeah, I mean, shit, it's been in your face, but they really just getting
Right. It's just blatant now.
Mm-hmm.
Literally.
Be versatile, y'all. That's all we saying. You can do the treaty talk and you can get it the other way too. Don't stop being out here walking around like you ain't in the middle of a pandemic and a worldwide reset.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's going to lead us right into our readings for today. So, of course, we're going to start off with that 1968 video, Leonard B. Johnson. And again, basically like Chief Alligator just alluded to, watch how he'll mention the Negro again in the media proclamation through the TV to put out as far as to the world that, okay, yeah, the Negro is being recognized. But again, as we stated, we have not yet to see anything regarding to our group or our classification underneath this system in any document.
Even while President Johnson talked to Chancellor Klaus about America's responsibility in a time of crisis and challenge, word came from Capitol Hill that Congress had passed and sent to the White House the Civil Rights Act of 1968. Included in the measure was a landmark open housing bill, which, when fully effective, would forbid discrimination in approximately 80% of all housing offered for rent or for sale in the United States.
I do not exaggerate when I say that the proudest moments of my presidency have been times such as this, when I have signed into law the promises of a century. I shall never forget that it is more than 100 years ago when Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation. But it was a proclamation. It was not a fact. And in the Civil Rights Act of 1964, we affirmed through law that men equal under God are also equal when they seek a job, when they go to get a meal in a restaurant, or when they seek lodging for the night in any state in the Union. And now the Negro families no longer suffer the humiliation of being turned away because of their race. In the Civil Rights Act of 1965, we affirmed through law for every citizen in this land the most basic right of democracy, the right of a citizen to vote in an election in his country. In the 5 states where the act had its greater impact, Negro voter registration has already more than doubled. Now with this bill, the voice of justice speaks again. It proclaims that fair housing for all human beings who live in this country is now a part of the American way of life. We all know that the roots of injustice run deep, but violence cannot redress a solitary wrong or remedy a single unfairness. And we just must put our shoulders together and put a stop to both. The time is here. Action must be now.
So again, another example of what will be promoted to us through TV propaganda, TV programming, as far as what is supposed to be taken as fact versus what the actual documents say, which had nothing to do with the Negro, was nothing specifically given to the Negro. Again, as we stated earlier, when have you seen anything as far as the Negro be defined, Black be defined, or colored be defined underneath this government? You haven't, we haven't. So again, basically what he said was, like he stated earlier, within his speech, proclamation, not fact. With that, I'll go ahead and pass it off to Chief Alligator for this week's Inventor, or actually Chief Quietwater with this week's Inventor, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. So this week I am doing Alfred Crail, C-R-A-L-L-E. He was an American businessman and inventor. He invented the ice cream mold and disher, like the ice cream scoop that you scoop ice cream with the little thing. He attended local schools and worked with his father in the carpentry trade as a young man. And then he got interested in becoming interested in mechanics. And then he became a general manager of the African American Financial Merchandise and Business Association. The patent number is 576395. The patent date is February 2nd, 1897. He was born September 4th, 1866 in Lunenburg County, Virginia, and he died May 6, 1919 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So again, something as simple as the ice cream scoop. Again, you know, every little thing that you can think of, we had our hands on, and we had a part of developing pretty much everything of our livelihood.
Do they got a Google patent for that, where they show an image?
Yes.
I'm just curious what the first one looked like.
Oh, okay. One second.
You should be able to share your screen.
Oh, here we go. Get to share screen.
Just thinking of the ice cream truck, you don't see a lot of us even driving around ice cream trucks. Okay, yeah.
This is what it looked like. Alfred Crail.
So this is really just a spiritual curse. It's really dependent on us walking away from what our grandparents and great-grandparents have done. This really has nothing to do with no other group of people. As long as we continue to act as if they were nobody, meaning even our grandparents that was in the civil rights era and back, you know, look at what we're walking away from, all these different inventions. When we just say, oh, they were slaves, you're just walking away from industries that the world is getting wealthy off of. This is a spiritual war.
Yeah.
All they're doing is just putting bait in front of us to consent to continue to be in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, which is a U.S. citizen. To be a U.S. citizen and you are the real American, you're in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Nothing's real. There is no money in this system. You're not recognized by this government through its Congress, by the names that they use to call you, Negro, Black, and color, or Afro-American now, or even people of color. There's no lawful definition from Congress of who that group's supposed to be. So this is on us and our consent. As long as we're willing to go along with it, we'll stay in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Absolutely right. With that, I'll go ahead and share my screen and let you go ahead with the Dr. Woodson quote for this week.
I think it's the last one.
That's okay. 13, I believe we have. Okay.
No, not that. Scroll up to number 11. 10. 11, 9. Where is it at? Okay, number 9. All right, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, the creator of what we now know as American History Month, aka Black History Month. Quote 9, Negroes must become like English gentlemen who study the law of the land, not because they intend to practice the profession, but because every gentleman should know the law and the interpretation of the law by the courts. 2, all the rights of the Negroes in this country are involved, and a larger number of us must qualify for this important service. We may have too many lawyers of the wrong kind, but we have not our share of the right kind. And for me on that quote, that very first sentence, Chief Biko, Negroes must become like English gentlemen who study the law of the land. The only law of the land is treaties. So that's why we say in our steps, find out what tribe and confederacy you come from. Whatever area in America that is, you need to be reading the treaties from that area to find out what happened, because the treaty supersedes the Constitution. And if your bloodline happens to come back to the Southeast region of North America, then the Gullah Wars or the Seminole Wars is a part of your history. The Indian Removal Act is a part of your history. That's what happened to our ancestors. That if your family tree goes back to that area, these are historical facts. So it's like we are niggers as a group now, meaning ignorant, because there's so many of us that come out of the Southeast region of North America. We don't know anything about the treaties in that area, meaning the wars that took place. And we don't know anything about the United States government acts that they rolled out against our own people. So that's why I chose 9 tonight. Y'all want to build on that?
I think it's good, just going back to that first sentence, but kind of expanding it, but not because they intend to practice the profession, but just because every gentleman should know the law. Again, studying to show yourself approved doesn't mean you're trying to implement yourself within this system. So basically, just to understand, kind of like what you was talking about with the chess, thinking of ourselves as the king or queen on that chessboard instead of as the pawn. If we're looking at, okay, I need to know my enemy's language, defenses, and plans, then I need to know their laws. I need to know their system, not because I want to practice or become a lawyer within their system or become a part of their system, but just so I can know how their system is supposed to function. And when it doesn't, I see a flaw, I see a weakness that we can possibly exploit. So that's kind of what I get from that first sentence. Again, not to become a part of this system, but just to know this system structure so that we can know how to go about possibly even picking certain things that we may like about it when reestablishing our own. So that's pretty much what I got from that quote for today.
And I think just always remembering that ignorance of the law is not an excuse. And that's so true, that we can act like we don't know, or we can just be ignorant just on the grand scale of all of us, but at some point we, like you just said, we have to learn what is the law. We have to read, we have to understand what is being done and how this government works. And so I think that's important as well. As that's where we lack. We don't read, and we don't read to comprehend. So
I definitely agree with that. With that, I'll go ahead and jump into the legal definitions and maroon historical points, then we'll jump into the readings. So number one, American, indigenous to America. Number two, descendants, one who follows in the bloodline of an ancestor, either lineally or collaterally. Number three, slavery, a situation in which one person has absolute power over the life, fortune, and liberty of another. Number four, prisoner of war, a person, usually a soldier, who was captured by or surrenders to the enemy in wartime. Number five, school, any institution at which instruction is given in a particular discipline. Number six, education, an enlightening experience. Number seven, recovery, a return to a normal state of health, mind, or strength, the action or process of regaining possession of something stolen or lost. And for the maroon historical points, number one was a person escaping slavery, seeking freedom, or breaking the law. Number two, providing unity and a strong defense came first. Number three, maroon leaders were first and foremost military figures. Number four, maroons established guerrilla warfare, planting sharp sticks and thick grass. And number five, maroons knew their European enemies' language, defenses, and plans. And that is our maroon historical points. Let me see, I believe last week within the 1968 Civil Rights Act, also known as the Indian Rights Act, I think we left off on page 24 at the top here. Did you want to start us off this week, Chief Quietwater? And I'll pick up on the other section.
I'll do it.
okay, where we at?
Oh, go ahead.
At the very top of the page.
Okay.
So, section B.
Okay, determinations by a state or a unit of determinations by a state or a unit of general local government under paragraph 5A and B shall not be conclusive in enforcement proceedings under this title. 7, as used in this subsection, the term covered multifamily dwellings mean A, buildings consisting of 4 or more units if such buildings have 1 or more elevator. B, ground floor units and other buildings consisting of 4 or more units. 8, nothing in this title shall be construed to invalidate or limit any law of a state or political subdivision of a state or other jurisdiction in which this title shall be effective. That requires dwellings to be designed and constructed in a manner that affords handicapped persons greater access than is required by this title. Number 9, nothing in this subsection requires that a dwelling be made available to any individual whose tenancy would constitute a direct threat to the health or safety of others, or whose tenancy would result in substantial physical damage to the property of others. So it's basically just giving a description of what a multifamily, like an apartment complex type of dwelling would be.
Right, and it's something that y'all didn't touch on last week, and what you just read, I just want to highlight. Can you highlight the word handicap? Because y'all read that a lot last week. And what's important about that word handicap, going back to the timeline, April 4th, 1968, the United States government killed Martin Luther King. 7 days later, April 11th, 1968, Congress writes this act. You had dogs sicked on you, your churches were burned, you were hung, you were being lynched, you was dealing with sundown towns, and yet, who are they including in this act? After all that violence that was done to you, they've included handicap. Can you go to the top at Title II? Because we got to cite to that every day before we start the readings, because repetition is the key to learning. It may sound mundane, but we got to keep hammering this home to people that are rocking with us so they can understand what happened, because nobody who looks like us has ever talked about this in detail. What we are saying is Title II of the 1968 Indian Rights Act, Congress clearly defines what an Indian is and what an Indian tribe is, what powers the Indian have, and what an Indian court is. What we are saying, based on proof of claim, government documents, nobody on planet Earth can add in the comment section or email us a document where Congress has defined what a Negro, Black, colored, or Afro-American is. That's what we're telling us. If you've never been recognized by this government, what does that make you? Even a week after they killed King. Y'all can continue reading on that, but we got to keep hammering that home till we get it. When we get it, the game is over. We don't get it yet.
What is it gonna take? That's the question. Okay, so discrimination in residential real estate related transactions, section 805A in general, it shall be unlawful for any person or other entity whose business include engaging in residential real estate related transactions to discriminate against any person in making available such a transaction or in the terms or conditions of such a transaction because of race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, or national origin. B, definition, as used in this section, the term residential real estate related transaction means any of the following. 1, the making or purchasing of loans or providing other financial assistance. A, for purchasing, constructing, improving, repairing, or maintaining a dwelling. Or B, secured by residential real estate. 2, the selling, brokering, or appraising of residential real estate. C, appraisal exemption. Nothing of this title prohibits a person engaged in the business of furnishing appraisals of real property to take into consideration factors other than race, color, religion, national origin, sex, handicap, or familial status. And that's something that happens all the time in regards to appraisals. They always appraise the values of properties in our neighborhoods hundreds of thousands of dollars less than they would in other neighborhoods. Okay.
I'm gonna go a little deeper. Can you highlight that subsection A where it says in general? We got to see the contradiction. Section 805. Yep. It tells you that it should be unlawful for any person to be discriminated against because of race, color, religion, sex, handicap, financial status, or national origin. Has Congress ever defined what our national origin is?
No.
Has Congress ever defined what our race is?
No.
Has Congress ever defined what our color is?
No.
You see how you've been gentrified and redlined since 1968? They never defined us.
Right.
So we're complaining about redlining, but we're going back to what we're saying. You were never defined by this government what the fuck Black, Negro, and colored is. Correct. And then you wonder why you're being discriminated on. Hell, you can't say race because Congress ain't ever defined what the fuck your race is.
Correct. And even under here, we're seeing that in each of these titles and each of these sections, they're clearly defining what residential real estate transaction means, what handicap means, what these terms mean, to give, like you said, a clear definition so you can understand, okay, if this pertains to me or if I fall in line with this section, like you stated, we've never seen what the definition, the lawful definition or legal definition of Black is within the actual act or written by Congress. So it's almost like we always continue to state, like we're just inputting ourselves into these certain categories when they're like, we never defined, but if you niggas want to say you're Black or if you want to say that's cool, but we ain't never clearly defined what that means. So
because we're just going along with it, we're consenting to it, with no pushback at all.
It's like being at Six Flags and you in line to get on the roller coaster. right?
Mhm.
And you just looking for somebody to let you in the line. It ain't no line for you. You just hoping somebody can be like, yeah, you can get in front of me. So where do we get in based on them definitions? Our women got in under family status, because that was, to be a family just means you just had to be a single individual. That's the only loophole that we could use.
Right.
We can't stand on religion. Why? Because your religion doesn't give you asylum protection. That's what the illegal immigrants are going to New York for right now. They're under asylum. Their religion protects them. The Negro's religion, and I'm just using the word Negro just, in context with this video, your religion doesn't give you asylum protection. So you got to start asking these questions. How are these other people coming over here and they got all kind of protections and we don't have none? You were never defined by Congress.
Yeah. Okay. Discrimination in the provision of brokerage services, Section 806. After December 31st, 1968, it shall be unlawful to deny any person access to or membership or participation in any multiple listing service, real estate brokers association, or other service organization or facility relating to the business of selling or renting dwellings, or to discriminate against him in the terms or conditions of such access, membership, or participation on account of race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, or national origin.
And you notice they keep
Pretty
talking
clear.
about dwellings.
Mm-hmm.
Dwellings had to have an elevator and it had to have 4 units in it.
Right.
What did the projects have up north, especially?
Yeah, right.
They had elevators, right? So you can
Right.
see a lot of what you're reading only refers to dwellings.
Mm.
Correct.
Okay, Section 807, nothing in this title shall prohibit a religion or a religious organization, association, or society, or any nonprofit institution or organization operated, supervised, or controlled by, or in conjunction with a religious organization, association, or society from limiting the sale, real estate, or occupancy of dwellings which it owns or operates for other than a commercial purpose to persons of the same religion, or from giving preference to such persons unless membership in such religion is restricted on account of race, color, or national origin. So basically that's saying that,
No, go ahead. That's powerful.
it's basically saying that if you, let me see, it will prohibit religious organizations or any group to discriminate against the race, color, or national origin, right?
What I'm taking from what you just read, and as a former treasurer of nonprofit organizations, this is when the fuckery started between business and religion.
Oh,
this section opens the door for churches to be in business. Look at what it says. Nothing in this title shall prohibit.
Oh, I read that wrong. Okay,
a
got
religious organization, association, or society, or any nonprofit institution.
Okay, so it's just opening the gate for them.
Right, or organized, operated, supervised, or controlled by, or in conjunction with a religious organization, association, or here's the key, from limiting the sale, rental, or occupancy of dwellings which it owns or operates for other than a commercial purpose to persons of the same religion. So you see how the Jewish community could capitalize on that because they can block you out based on religious beliefs, right? What did our people do? Our people commercialize the nonprofit. So here's what they do: create nonprofits for profit. Let me say that again. Yeah. They create nonprofits for profit. So that's why when you look at us as a group of people, we're always talking government, but the documents that they're filing are really for nonprofit organizations, associations, and societies. That's not government. To be government, you're declaring independence and you're creating your own. the hustle that started in 1968 through the 1968 Civil Rights Act is now everybody is trained since that point to create you a nonprofit entity or an association or a society.
Right.
Raise money from the people. You
Mhm.
follow me? Get your secretary, your treasurer, and whatever your figurehead person is going to be. And then notice anytime something happens to us, you got organizations. Black Lives Matter is an organization. All these Negroes they put on. Al Sharpton runs an organization. What's the name of his organization?
The Rainbow Coalition. Is that
That's it? Right. It's an association. So that's the hustle that's being ran on us. We looked at that as an out. The people who were adults or young adults at that time, they went for nonprofits. Nonprofit is not the same as creating your own government.
Correct. Correct. And what you do is just get an exemption status. That's basically what this is. And kind of going back to what you were stating with the immigrants seeking asylum, they can get this through that because, like you stated, they're practicing a certain religion. So in here saying, okay, you can pretty much basically discriminate based off of this individual's religion. So you can say, oh yeah, well, they're Catholic, so we can have them all here. Going back to, like you stated, with the Jews, we can establish our own basically economy because we're saying that we're giving religious preference to these individuals. It's not based on race, even though we understand it is, but underneath this, they're exempt from that status because they can claim that religious exemption or any other type of exemption based off of these exemption status, like you said, the nonprofit as well.
And it's sad that people aren't educating our group because if you listen to the news, again, going back to New York, they're clearly telling you they're bringing these people in under asylum.
Man.
And we never take time to look up the definition of what an asylum is. Before we close tonight, we'll look up the definition of asylum so we can inform y'all your religious belief, that religion is supposed to protect its people. That's why these illegal immigrants can live on religious property. And you can't, remember when Donald Trump was in office, he was trying to get federal approval to be able to go onto those religious grounds and get those. Yeah, he couldn't do it. Why? Because they were under asylum protection. So my question to the prisoner of war on the land, the Negro, black, and colored, where's your asylum? You in the middle of a pandemic. You've never been allocated nothing specifically since the pandemic started. Tyree Nichols was killed in February by the Memphis police. They never re-entered the George Floyd Act or the amended version of the George Floyd Act. Now you got a man in New York killed on the New York train in broad daylight, and you wondering why you're not protected and no charges have been filed on a citizen.
Right.
Don't have protection. I'll stop right there.
Yeah.
Great point.
Okay, so nor shall anything in this title prohibit a private club not in fact open to the public, which is an incident to its primary purpose or purposes, provides lodgings, which it owns or operates for other than commercial purposes, for limiting the rental of occupancies of such lodges to its members or from giving preference to its members. So basically, like you just said, if you're an organization, you can pretty much discriminate and do whatever the heck you want to do.
Yep. Under the guise of that nonprofit. Yep.
B1, nothing in this title limits the applicability of any reasonable local, state, or federal restrictions regarding the maximum number of occupants permitted to occupy a dwelling, nor does any provisions in this title regarding familial status apply with respect to housing for older persons. Number 2, as used in this section, housing for older persons mean housing provided under any state or federal program that the secretary determines is specifically designed and operated to assist elderly persons as defined in the state or federal program. B, intended for and solely occupied by persons 62 of age or older. C, intended and operated for occupancies by persons 55 years of age or older. And I, at least 80% of the occupied units are occupied by at least one person who is 55 years of age or older. The housing facility or community publishes and adheres to policies and procedures that demonstrate the intent required under this paragraph. And the housing facility or community complies with the rules issued by the Secretary for verification of occupancy, which shall provide for verification by reliable surveys and affidavits, include examples of types of policies and procedures relevant to a determination of compliance with the requirements of Clause 2. Such surveys and affidavits shall be admissible in administrative and judicial proceedings for the purposes of such verification. So this is just going over housing for older people, just defining the older, what an older person is, and also the percentages of how many people would have to occupy these dwellings in order to be considered an older person dwelling.
I think that's interesting too, this part here where it says at least 80% of the occupied units are occupied by at least one person who is 55 years of age. So going back to thinking, okay, dog, your whole family living in that unit? Yeah. So you got your grandparents living in, you got their sons, their daughters, all in this one unit, and it can be classified basically as, what is it stating here? Homes for elderly persons or housing for older persons.
Correct. And just to add on to that, section 2, if you highlight that right above A, because everything she just read, yep. Again, for everybody that has this document, here's another lawful definition of older person, which is what Chief Quietwater just read. All those points point back to what they consider to be an older person. Where's the definition for Negro, Black, and colored? Because Lyndon Baines Johnson clearly said the Negro has now the right to vote and the right to housing, and he can eat at a restaurant. We're still looking when Congress defines what Negro, Black, and colored is. Are we getting this, people? They've defined older person, they've defined handicap, they've defined dwelling. You notice they've defined what an Indian is, what an Indian tribe is.
And they break it down too.
Like, this shit is not hard, y'all. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's crazy.
Okay. Number 3, housing shall not fail to meet the requirements for housing for older persons by reason of a person residing in such housing as of the date of enactment of this act, who do not meet the age requirements of subsection 2, B, or C, provided the new occupants of such housing meet the age requirements of subsection 2, B, or C, or B, unoccupied units, provided that such units are reserved for occupancies by persons who meet the age requirement of subsections 2, B, or C. Nothing in this title prohibits conduct against a person because such person has been convicted by any court of competent jurisdiction of the illegal manufacture or distribution of controlled substances as defined in section 102 of Controlled Substances Act 21 USC 802. 5A, a person shall not be held personally liable for monetary damages for a violation of this title if such person reasonably relied in good faith on the application of the exemption under this subsection relating to housing for older persons. B, for the purpose of this paragraph, a person may only show good faith reliance on the application of the exemption by showing that such person has no actual knowledge that the facility or community is not or will not be eligible for such exemption. 2, the facility or community has stated formally in writing that the facility or community complies with the requirements for such exemption. What?
Like a bunch of escape clauses.
Yeah.
I got one that I want to bang y'all with that she read. Number 4, in what she just read. Nothing in this title prohibits conduct against a person because such person has been convicted by any court of competent jurisdiction of the illegal manufacture or distribution of a controlled substance. They just fucks you. They're saying, basically, they're saying this don't prohibit them from written. It says it doesn't prohibit their conduct against you. So if you have a felony, because this is the heroin age, right? This is before cocaine and crack. So they're saying, oh, you got a charge for heroin? Nothing in this act prohibits somebody from not wanting to rent to you. Are y'all with me?
Yeah, or treat
It's
you.
not protecting you. It's saying, hey, ain't nothing in this.
Game. It's fair game. You underneath their dwelling, and hell, they can treat you however they want to. So if they felt like kicking your ass out one day,
right, or not even giving you the opportunity, and hence, you know, a lot of people that, you know, get released from prison can't get a place of their own, and hence they're homeless, you know. So it is in black and white right here.
And let's go a little bit further on this, because this is in 68. Doesn't it make sense why there was a war on drugs by the time me and you were born, Chief Whitewater?
True. Yeah.
In the next decade? Because if you've got us in dwellings, right, which the media calls them projects, but based on this act, it's a dwelling. If you put drugs in that, if you put, no, let's use the lawful term that Congress said. If you put controlled substances in the dwellings of these people, can't you evict them when they get charged?
Right.
So you can kind of see how this starts, the chemical warfare. That's what I call it. The 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s up until now, we've been suffering from chemical warfare from the government. Through heroin, crack, through cocaine, and now the pill epidemic. This is just chemical warfare.
Damn, they can treat you however the hell they want to, basically. We're not prohibiting no action that's being put if you're falling underneath this. That's wild. I can pick up here on administration section 808. The authority and responsibility for administering the act shall be in the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. The Department of Housing and Urban Development shall be provided an additional assistant secretary. Amends the Housing and Urban Development Act, Public Law 89-174, Section 4A and 7. The secretary may delegate any of his functions, duties, and powers to employees of the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or to boards of such employees, including functions, duties, and powers with respect to investigating, conciliating, hearing, determining, ordering, certifying, reporting, or otherwise acting as to any work, business, or matter under this title. The persons to whom such delegations are made with respect to hearing functions, duties, and powers shall be appointed and shall serve in the Department of Housing and Urban Development in compliance with Section 3105, 3344, 5372, 7521 of Title V of the United States Code. Insofar as possible, conciliation meetings shall be held in the cities or other localities where the discriminatory housing practices allegedly occurred. The secretary shall by rule prescribe such rights of appeal from the decisions of his hearing examiners to other hearing examiner or other officers in the department. Basically, it's given the secretary the right to delegate all of its power to even the lowest member of, I guess, that employment status. So basically, if somebody has a gripe against somebody, they'll be able to pretty much wield all the power as this secretary if they're given that power by that secretary. That's what I'm seeing here.
And scroll back up real quick. Just shout out to the title. We've heard this our whole lives. Urban development and housing. But you know, how many of us have actually read it?
Right.
You know, once again, we only let TV tell us what, or we let people who look like us get in front of us and oratate to us what happened instead of standing on the documents and actually reading the documents. So we can see now, I got a different view on what urban development and housing was. It was dwellings for our elders. And like Chief Biko said, it makes sense. That's why you had the whole family living in the damn project. It was the grandma that got the damn dwelling.
Yeah.
Yeah, the grandma is who qualified for the dwelling.
Correct.
So
Correct.
that's why the whole family there.
Mm-hmm.
Because she's considered a family even as an individual based on the definition of what family is under this. You feel me? So it all starts to make sense. And then the boys, if you're not giving them employment opportunity, which makes them indigent in society or homeless because they're grown men living with their grandparents. So then you put drugs in the community,
Right.
so they can make a quick profit, not knowing that the European is playing the long game. I'm going to put the drugs in your community, but once I lock you up and arrest you for controlled substances,
Everybody out. The whole family out.
Yeah.
Not just your whole family out.
Right.
So not only you, but your grandma, grandpa,
Right.
who else is living in that dwelling. So
Mhm.
yeah, we'll give you a little coins because we know we finna fuck you over anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just great point there. Where did I leave off in this section here? To boards of officers or to himself as shall be appropriate and in accordance with law. Section D, all executive departments and agencies shall administer their programs and activities relating to housing and urban development, including any federal agency having regulatory or supervisory authority over financial institution development in a manner affirmatively to further the purposes of this title, and shall cooperate with the Secretary to further such purposes. The Secretary of Housing and Urban Development shall, 1, make studies with respect to the nature and extent of discriminatory housing practices in representative communities, urban, suburban, and rural throughout the United States. 2, publish and disseminate reports, recommendations, and information derived from such studies, including an annual report to the Congress, specifying the nature and extent of progress made nationally in eliminating discriminatory housing practices and furthering the purposes of this title, obstacles remaining to achieving equal housing opportunity, and recommendations for further legislative or executive action, and containing tabulations of the number of instances and the reasons therefore in the preceding year in which investigations are not completed as required by Section 810A 1B, determinations are not made within the time specified in Section 810G, and hearings are not commenced, or findings and conclusions are not made as required by Section 812. Cooperate with and render technical assistance to federal, state, local, and other public or private agencies, organizations, and institutions which are formulating or carrying on programs to prevent or eliminate discriminatory housing practices. 4, cooperate with and render such technical and other assistance to the community relations service as may be appropriate to further its activities in preventing or eliminating discriminatory housing practices. Administer the program and activities relating to housing and urban development in a manner affirmatively to further the policy of this title. And 6, annually report to Congress and make available to the public data on the race, color, religion, sex, national origin, age, handicap, and family characteristics of persons and households who are applicants or participants in or beneficiaries or potential beneficiaries of program administered by the department to the extent such characteristics are within the coverage of the provisions of law and executive orders referred to in Section F, which apply to such programs. So basically, this is just listing off all of the powers, or pretty much what they'll have to do on an annual basis as far as reporting, data collection, basically again, seeing who's living in these dwellings, what is their classification, what is their religion, national origin, basically to see if it's all in compliance with basically this urban house development.
Right. And that last section, Section 6, annual report to Congress, right here at the bottom.
Report to Congress. Okay, yeah.
6. Yep, annual report to Congress and make available to the public data. The reason why this is important is you got to put your accounting hat on and remember they killed King a week prior to this. So from an accounting standpoint, when they send this report to Congress, Who are they accounting for? They're accounting for race, color, religion, sex, national origin, age, handicap, and family characteristics. You're not itemized as a group of people under this government. This is what you got in return after the government killed Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Fred Hampton, locked up a lot of your Black Panthers. This is what you got in return. Nothing specific. This is why, or this is how they've been able to systematically erase us since the civil rights era. They never defined you in law. So that means they never specifically have to account for this group, because who's included in this civil rights bill? Race. You got white people. Didn't European women benefit off the Civil Rights Act?
Mm-hmm.
You got religion. Did the Jews slide in?
Mm-hmm.
Did the Hindus slide in? Did the Catholics slide in? You got sex. Didn't they start a gay movement back during the time? National origin. Now you talk about people coming from other governments like China or Japan. So this is why this is important. We've never been accounted for. When you say, when they say Black, it's only recognized in agencies. Look at the United States as the parent company. The parent company never defined what Black is, but the subsidiary agencies underneath the government will identify you as Black, whether it's vital statistics, driver. You see what I'm saying? But at the top, at the parent company, you're never being specifically accounted for.
Right.
We called that back in my day being ant dick. That's what's going on. They're ant dicking us. They'll talk out their mouth as if they're talking to you.
Right.
But ant dick means it's so small what you getting.
Wow. Like you said, that's we just ping-ponging you back between that state
and just using us however they see fit, and whatever different scenario they need. You know, they use it when it's convenient for whatever agenda that they have at that given time. But this game was planned many years ago, and we have just definitely fallen deep into it.
So let me ask y'all a question as we finish the reading for today, because we're going into another section, right?
Yeah.
How do we fix it? We got our people talking about reparations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Understanding what we're reading, and everybody who's reading along and has copies of these documents as we drop them in the chat. How, if you look at this like a machine, you know how it's supposed to work. Everything has to come through its Congress. You know that the operating manual is supposed to be the Constitution, and money is supposed to be gold and silver, but you're not working off that. So you're under a government that is not using what it called money, and you're a part of a group that's never been defined by its Congress, which makes its law. How do you get out of that? I'm asking everybody on here and anybody who's listening to this video, put in the chat, how do you get out of this? You can't file for reparations because the federal government can act dumb and say, well, we can't give it to Blacks, or we can't give it to a Negro because we never lawfully defined what that was. So that we'll go, how do you get out of it? Can you fix it? And if you can't fix it, how do you get out of it? How do you get your shit back?
Establish it.
Yeah, you got to establish your own. That's literally the only way. And I think people are delusional to think that, like you said, getting reparations, and we listened to what he said on the reparations here. Wasn't it the reparations hearing, I think, that we listened to, is not going to happen. We are fighting for something that will never, ever happen. It should not even be a discussion. It shouldn't be anything put on the table to be considered, because it's not going to happen, because it can't happen.
Yeah, you literally stated it. And like you stated, we've never been defined. So like you stated, the question of what do we do? reestablish our own shit. We come again, going back to the beginning of this video and many other videos, we come from confederacies, establish our own shit. It does say, what does it say? National origin. So again, if we're talking about, again, looking at big picture, nations talk to nations, that'll be the only way. And then of course, if we can't come to an agreement for you to give us our shit back, then that's when we get our warlords or war chiefs or whatever involved. But yeah, it would start by starting off our own shit and not going through a nonprofit organization
or a preacher or an athlete.
Yeah, so
it has to be, like we've mentioned before, just everyday people who just tired, everyday people who get this information and understand it, to know where we stand up under this government.
Because you're not getting anything anyway. So
right. What do we have to lose? Like Trump said.
Got nothing to gain from this government. So again, what do you have to lose? Yeah.
So I'm in agreement with what both of y'all said. Yeah, it has to be a government to government situation. You're not going to receive compensation as a citizen of the United States government, because the United States government never recognized your specific type of citizen, which would be Black, Negro, or colored. So you're going to have to do the hard work of creating your own. And that's where the ball is being dropped, because we keep defaulting back to applying or filing with their government. That's not what we're saying on this channel. We're saying we have to create our own procedures and documents. And if you think that's hard, I'm gonna give you a little clue. Go down to the town square of wherever you live, right? You got your major metropolitan city, and then you're going to have those little cities on the outskirts of it. Go down to your major metropolitan building, or go to one of those surrounding cities and go to the courthouse, wherever that local building is that you handle your business and pull your records. Look for the landmark of that building. It's going to say established in, and the dates are going to be in the late 1800s. What they did was overthrew us. We were in those buildings. If you don't believe me, look at what happened in Charleston, South Carolina. Look at what happened in Williamstown, South Carolina. They literally walked us out of those buildings and replaced us. But when you think you were a slave, you can't see that you were actually governing territories and tribes. You can't see that, but they do tell you in your history, oh yeah, here in this state, yeah, they pulled up one night the militia and made everybody step down. And then they implemented a system that's going to benefit their people that was coming from Europe. So anything short of having our own, we're putting ourselves in a spiritual curse, because we're dishonoring our ancestors. They've set this thing up where you cannot get remedy as a citizen. You cannot get reparations as a citizen of the United States government, because you can't make the government provide the document that made you a citizen.
Before we close out, I just pulled up some stuff I just want to show. Finish reading off this section and we'll stop at section F and then bring up the asylum definition. But definitely just pulled up something, and I just want to show something I just researched on the internet, and exactly what we just was discussing with the 501c and the nonprofit. So I'll continue here. To develop the data to be included and made available to the public under this subsection, the Secretary shall, without regard to any other provision of law, collect such information relating to those characteristics as the Secretary determines to be necessary or appropriate. So we'll end there with the 1968 Civil Rights Act, but definitely wanted to show this because I think this is very important to what we were just discussing in regards to nations deal with nations. So I wanted to pull this up here because this is something that came out a couple years ago, and Germany offered I believe that is Namibia, more than 1 billion euros over 30 years as reparations. So Germany, that's a country, has its own government. Namibia, that's a country, has its own government. So that's how they can even have a discussion regarding reparations. But let's take a look at who is writing this article. National African American Reparations Commission, an organization. So they're trying to basically use this as an example for the quote unquote African American of what we are supposed to do. But we just stated that governments speak to governments in regards to reparations. So why the fuck is 501c3, and I'm not making it up, 501c3 organization talking about reparations?
Damn.
These are your enemies, people.
Wow.
You know,
That's crazy.
You know, for my experience in life, as I said before, I've always been an open-minded cat, and I've always wanted to seek light. And I was blessed to be a part of different organizations and be trusted at the highest level, which is trusted with the money. And once I understood what a 501c3 is and what it can and cannot do, and why I always stood against it, because it's a contradictory entity. You can't go against the government and not pay taxes. Nobody who looks like us wants to tell that reality. When you have a 501c3, you want to know why none of your preachers come out when we get killed? Because you cannot go against the United States government and keep your tax-free status. In other words, you can't sell Lord and not pay taxes and then turn around and talk about you want reparations for the people. So it's a bait and switch. And so once you start to coming from where I came from, not really being a part of different things at the high school level, if you will, you know, being a full-grown master within the real world before I even started participating, you know, in organizations. So my eyes, I had more experience than a lot of people, regardless of age, coming in. I started realizing who the real crooks are. The real crooks are the people with the suit and ties on that you think when you look at them like, oh, damn, be like that when I grow up. Then you realize, shit, you niggas worse than the niggas in the hood.
Exactly.
Bingo.
I don't even know if y'all just got what I said.
Yeah, because you think that paperwork protect you.
Right.
Versus in the streets, your word is bond. You say some shit, I'm pulling up on you. So, no, that's definitely a good example. But I definitely wanted to just show this. Just again, just show a real life, real in time example of what we were just discussing in regards to the reparations and how we've never been defined within this government, yet we're having, again, another definition, or our current classification is African American underneath this system. And again, the 501c3, another exemption we just read within that document, trying to talk about reparations and use an example of nations talking about reparations and a status underneath a system talking about reparations in two different jurisdictions.
Right.
One, they're having negotiations. The other, we ain't even trying to read your shit because he was never defined. So just wanted to kind of highlight that. And then just going back to the asylum definition, these were the definitions I was able to pull up here. So I'll read them off. And inviolable place of refuge and protection, giving shelter to criminals and debtors, basically sanctuary.
Can you pull up the legal definition?
The legal.
Yeah, you want to pull up the legal definition of asylum.
Define. Definition to see exactly what that goes underneath. If you don't pull up here, I had to pull up my
Let me grab my black slot right quick.
I'm about to say. Might have found something. Okay. Just to kind of cross-reference it, I found this Cornell one, but definitely if you pull up in Black's Law definition. This one says asylum is a kind of protection granted by a foreign country to individuals, especially those who face persecution in their home countries because of their race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group, or political opinion. The asylum seekers whose applications are approved are called asylees.
So my definition is kind of similar to that, but my legal definition out the Black's Law Dictionary, it's got 3 points. The first point, a sanctuary is a shelter. The second point, protection of usual political refugees from arrest by a foreign jurisdiction. Protection of political refugees from arrest by a foreign jurisdiction. A nation or embassy that affords such protection. And the last definition, an institution for the protection and relief of the unfortunate, especially the mentally ill. Doesn't this go right back to New York?
Yep.
Why is it that we don't have asylums for all my Christian Negroes and all my Hebrew Israelite Negroes? Where are groups of people asylum? So is it clear to you now why the illegal immigrant is coming into all your major cities where we live and getting $500,000 free housing, free Airbnb, PlayStations, stipends, because they're political refugees.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying that they have mental illnesses from having to leave their homeland.
Wow.
Meanwhile, choking you out on the train in broad daylight for your mental illness.
Correct. Bingo. How that work?
Wow.
How that work? Because that last definition was the cherry on top, like you stated. Someone who has mental illness. Isn't that all that's been propaganda or pumped into the narrative? He had mental illness.
Exactly.
Well,
Right.
if he had mental illness,
And didn't show any signs of violence.
Correct.
Like, that's crazy.
Because if he had mental illness, then he should have been, according to your legal definition, given asylum.
Exactly.
Shelter.
And he was a veteran. Like,
so.
And that last definition says an institution for the protection and relief of the unfortunate. Don't we have our own set of unfortunate amongst our people?
definitely.
What about our veterans that are homeless? What about the people who are coming out of prison that are home? We don't even, so if you're not prisoners of war people, why don't we have asylums?
And that's crazy too. I'm sorry, because it said wait, did I see something that said for debtors and criminals?
Yeah, that was the other definition. For
Okay.
Webster definition.
Right, like you just said, why not for people getting out of prison? Why not for people, like, just don't make any sense.
Right. So what the news is, again, why are we in this situation? Why do we even have that man's face on the image tonight? Because going back to Dr. Carter G. Woodson's quote, Negroes must be like English gentlemen and understand the law. If you don't understand what they're doing to you, then all you do is complain like a child. Doing this. Instead of sitting back like adults. Shout out to everybody that's rocking with the chat tonight. What we're being as adults, and we're looking at the law and we're saying, oh, now we see what's going on. Now we see why, as the rent races and the cost of housing increases with all this funny fiat printing since the pandemic, and our people are finding it harder to have shelter, we see why you got these influx of illegal immigrants coming in. They're under asylum. So now you got to ask them churches and them organizations with the 501c3 status that's been selling God and paying no tax for the last 60 years, where's our asylums at, bro? I mean, we've been breaking off your collection plate for decades, dog. Why we ain't got no asylum? Where's the Negro asylum? Yeah. Where's the asylum for the people getting out of prison, or the veterans that have came from Iraq or Afghanistan war that are, well, damn, we don't get nothing? So you mean a motherfucker from Guatemala can't speak English? You're not gonna give them a COVID-19 shot. You mandated it for a lot of our people through the media, and a lot of them fell for it. But damn, they ain't got to take a shot. And they go into New York, that's ground zero for the pandemic. And you put them in a hotel for free. or Airbnb or an apartment.
Mm-mm-mm.
You give them food stipends. Damn.
Yeah, that's crazy.
We are temporary workers on a job site. I said this the last time I was on here with y'all. You got full-time employees, you got part-time employees, and you got temp workers. We have the temp work status under this government. And now we've lost the temp status because illegals are getting more benefits than niggas in 2023.
Yeah, that sums it up. I definitely agree.
I say we probably land the plane right there. Shoot, that was a good build tonight. Definitely shout out to everybody in the chat for rocking with us. Gonna keep hammering home with these, these facts and reading through this document and making it come alive and showing you real-time examples, again, of what we're talking about, how this all pretty much comes into play of what we're dealing with today. From, again, learning the definition of what a dwelling is to the urban house development. Now we're starting to see, okay, why we had so many folks within one unit and how they can conduct themselves as far as these landlords for our group of people if they were to find a controlled substance in, these dwellings. So yeah, everything's starting to make sense once you read the documents instead of just listening to the TV propaganda or what Lyndon B. Johnson stated, proclamation is not fact. So he told you right there, don't listen to shit what media is saying, read the document for yourself. And that's all we're doing on this channel. Anybody else want to say something?
Yeah, thank you to everybody who came into the chat tonight. And again, like Chief Biko said, we're going to continue to talk about this and just bring things to light for us to just at one point open up and all get on code. All get on code with each other so that we can just move our group forward because we are definitely left behind.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna shout out the people in the chat as I just opened it up. Legend of Naga, Original Tillers, Bronze Flat Power God. Who else I see in here? Chief Kawishto, Phyllis Brown, Nahal, Illinois State, George Richard III, IG the Finisher, a Duke, Dark Cable, Miss Lita. I think that's it. If I missed anybody else, shout out to everybody who was in the building and built with us tonight. We got 25 people in the building with us, rocking out, studying to show ourselves approved and debunking all these lies based on based on public records. So want to salute everybody and protect yourself out here, man. Don't go to sleep, because now if they feel like you're talking too loud, try to choke you out. That's basically where we at with this cat. They basically said he was too. I killed him because he was loud.
Wow. Literally.
Not that he attacked me, and to choke somebody out means you got to come from behind. So how you fair for your life and you came up from behind the man? But again, when you've lived long enough and you've seen enough, they can't make it make sense. But basically they killed the man because he was loud on the train. Who the fuck are you to tell me that I'm loud on the train? That's where I'm at. Really think about what the fuck just happened. Who the fuck are you to tell me that I'm loud? So that gives you the right to try to kill me?
Not try to do it.
Do it.
Correct.
Yeah.
So salute everybody.
Yes, sir. Salute y'all.
Peace.
Oops, sorry.